The Carolina Hurricanes are up 3-1 in the series against the Washington Capitals with a very big game on Thursday night. Now, can the Canes do what they did in round one and finish this round two off in 5 games to punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference Final?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talk everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a terrific Thursday episode of the podcast as we get to look at the 3 keys of what I think will be the success for the Hurricanes to potentially win Game 5 on Thursday night against the Washington Capitals to end this round early and get ready for the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to talk about Frederik Andersen, going to talk about the special teams, and why 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey is going to be very huge in this one for the Canes. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, you guys have known I've been talking about Frederik Andersen for pretty much the entire playoffs and just how good he's been. You hear me say it here on, Locked On Hurricanes. You see it in my writing over at the Hockey Writers. Frederik Andersen has been that guy for the Hurricanes all playoffs, as even with him getting knocked out early in Game 4 in round 1 and missing Game 5. But other than that, Andersen has been that guy for the Hurricanes, and the Great Dane has taken his game to the next level because you look where he's at in the playoffs right now. After 8 starts, he is 6-2 with a 141 goals against average and a 935 save percentage. Of course, we've talked about it earlier in the week where he's tied for his best goals against average while, he's played in 8 games. He's tied his 2016 playoff run with the Ducks where he also had a 141, but that was in 5 games. And his goals again, and his save percentage is only .008 lower than that same playoff. But if you look at the overall of where his records are at in terms of the playoff, he went 11-5 for the Ducks in the 15 playoffs after 16 starts. He's already at 6 after 8 for the Hurricanes in the 25 playoffs. So he is well on his way to potentially, depending on how the rest of the playoff goes, he has a legitimate shot of basically setting a new career high for wins in the playoffs as long as this thing keeps going. And right now he's very much doing that because even then for the 15 playoffs, he had a 234 goals against and a 913 save percentage over 1,000 minutes in the net for the Ducks. But right now where he's at, he's having a sensational playoff for the Hurricanes. If you go back to the 20 playoffs with the Maple Leafs, this is currently his best run where he's had a sub 2 goals against. Yeah, the 24 playoffs wasn't great, was a 2.62, but if you look at this season right now, his save percentage is .001 less than what it was when it was with the Leafs in 2020, but his goals against is by far the best since that time, since we came into the 2020s. And the way he's been, too, is just Andersen has found a way to keep the Hurricanes in every single game, especially in this round. Game 4 was the first time any team scored in the first period, and it was the Carolina Hurricanes that did that. Frederik Andersen, at one point before going into Game 4, he had the Capitals not score a goal in 5 consecutive periods. That's how on fire he was, and that's going back to the Game 3 4-0 shutout win. And right now, that's just on the level he's been in. And the fact that the Capitals have had a lot of starts where they put a ton of shots, put a lot of pressure on the Hurricanes, but somehow Andersen was just able to do what he needed to do to keep the Hurricanes in the game and outlast that barrage and to give the Hurricanes time to get to the flow of their game and get themselves going. And that's why you see the Hurricanes be where they're at right now, where you're up 3-1 in the series, where you shut the Capitals out in game 3, 4-0, and then you go look at game 4, where it was an absolute crazy type of game where the Hurricanes were up, the Capitals clawed back within 1, the Hurricanes went up 2 again, they clawed back, and then they found a way to just end that game. So it's one of those things where, if not for Andersen, this series or maybe even these playoffs could look very, very different. And right now, if you ask me if there's someone who's legitimately in the top 3 for conversations of who could win the Conn Smythe, it's got to be Frederik Andersen. And if he does, if the Hurricanes manage to keep continuing this run and make the Cup final, and however that plays out, Andersen could be the second ever Hurricanes netminder ever to win a Conn Smythe, and that would be very huge. That was him, because he would be joining Cam Ward and talk about some elite company to go in and win a Conn Smythe. So that's just the play that Andersen's been on right now. And for me, that's why he's going to be one of the keys in game 5. If he can find a way to do what he's been doing, holding the Capitals to basically nothing in the first period, hopefully the Hurricanes start a little bit quicker like they did in game 4, where they're already up in the first period, and kind of, you get up early like they did in that one, but then can take that game 3 mentality of just never letting the Capitals back into it. If they limit their penalties, like, unfortunately there was a lot of penalties in game 4, but luckily the Hurricanes held on. But if they limit to what they did, like they managed to do in game 3, but take that early start in game 4 where you're up 1-0, I think that's really going to help out Andersen, and it's going to help with the team overall, because now you're starting off early with a lead and carrying it into a game 5. And that's a good recipe to maybe like, hey, we're up, we're not chasing. Freddie has been playing outstanding all series. He's playing out of his mind already in this game. That's going to be a good recipe to have if you're Carolina, where you're looking to clinch this round. Like you're one game away from the Eastern Conference Final, and their one big key has been the guy in net. The Great Dane has been playing some great, super great hockey, and that's just how he is. So for me, if the Hurricanes are looking to punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference Final, it starts with that guy in the net. If he can manage to keep playing like he has been, where he's had over a 900 save percentage in the last 4 starts he's had for the Canes, that's really going to help them set him up, because that's why they're up 3-1 in the series. He's been lights out pretty much every game for the most part, and that's even including the one where they lost game 2 in Washington, but he only gave up 2 goals in that game because the third one's an empty netter. So other than that, he's pretty much been dialed in for the Canes in the playoffs, and more importantly, this series. He's only given up 2 goals twice, and the last one was in that game 4 when to put him up 3-1 in the series. Other than that, he's given up 1, essentially, in 2 other games. Like, that's just how good Frederik Andersen's been. 929, 900, 1,905. That's his save percentage for this series so far. And if he keeps putting on the performances like he had, I won't be surprised if you see another plus 900 save percentage in game 5. And if the Hurricanes, which we'll talk about in segment 2, limit their penalties and not giving the Capitals so many opportunities, this could be a game where Andersen could give up 2 or fewer goals once again in this series. We all know that Washington's going to be coming out firing. They're going to come out with, their backs are against the wall. They're going to come out firing. They're going to throw a lot of hits, put a lot of pucks on net, going to try to neutralize the Canes and, try to get them into committing a lot of penalties, because that's what the Capitals need right now, is given over the opportunity, because the only goal Ovechkin scored this entire series was on a 5-on-3 in game 4. That was absolutely it. Other than that, he's been neutralized this series. So the Capitals are going to do everything they can to get Ovi going and getting these guys going too, because they don't want to lose on home ice in game 5 and see their season end. So the Hurricanes are going to have to get ready for a very strong start from the Caps. And of course, if with how Andersen's been this entire series, don't be surprised if we're going to see another huge game by him to keep the Hurricanes in this one, and hopefully see the Hurricanes score first. So that's going to be a very big key, is that guy in the net continuing to do his job like he has been all playoffs. Now, I kind of mentioned it a little bit, talking about the special teams and how they need to limit giving the Capitals so many opportunities in the power play and, of course, taking advantage of themselves. So stick around and we'll talk about why special teams is the second big key for the Hurricanes in this game on Thursday night. Stick around. We'll talk about it here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, but more importantly, it's really the NHL playoffs are in full swing. That's what we're really here for. And every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. Major momentum shifts, can't miss moments, whether it's a game-changing shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So you kind of heard me talk about it a little bit in segment 1. Really going to talk about it here in segment 2. And that's the special teams. And we all know how big the special teams have been for the Carolina Hurricanes so far in these playoffs. They've only given up 2 power play goals. And unfortunately, they're both at the Capitals. But the second one wasn't really the greatest. I wouldn't say it's really on the Kings for the most part. It's just kind of tough where the puck kind of goes off of Andersen's top of his shoulder, off the crossbar and in. But it had to go to a 5-on-3 for that to happen. But that's neither here or there. Other than that, though, the Carolina Hurricanes penalty kill has been absolutely dialed in so far. How about 25 for 27 in the 9 games? They are at a 92.6%. The next best would be the Dallas Stars, who are 34 for 38, but they're at 89.5. The Hurricanes' net PK, however, is a 96.3 because they did score a shorthanded goal thanks to Jordan Martinook in the series against New Jersey Devils. So, like I said in segment 1, if the Hurricanes limit their penalties, because there was a lot of penalties they committed in Game 4, which unfortunately gave the Capitals a little bit too many opportunities. Were some soft? I would say yes, but it was kind of soft on both sides. The whole playoffs in general have been kind of a joke when it comes to what gets called and what doesn't get called. Like the very ticky-tacky stuff gets called, but major incidences don't really get that. And let's not talk about player safety, because apparently you kind of do whatever and just get slapped with a fine, and that's really about it, unless it's like a forearm shiver where you get a couple games. But that's a whole another conversation for a different time. So you can't really say one team is favored over the other. Penalties have just been a joke all playoffs long for every series. But if the Hurricanes can find a way to limit their doings of being shorthanded, I think that's really going to go a long way for them, because you don't want to give the Capitals too many opportunities, because we saw in Game 4, they had 5 chances. They got one. It was on a 5-on-3. What can you do? Unfortunately, the puck went up the crossbar into the net, which the Hurricanes had that type of luck. But, hey, you're up 3-1 in the series. You'll take what you can get. But, like I said, as long as the Hurricanes get able to do that, I think they're going to put themselves in a good spot where they're not having to worry about having to come back and have a lot of guys tired because they're out there killing off a lot of penalties. And plus, you're limiting Ovechkin in his office. You're limiting the Capitals on the man advantage, because now you're putting the pressure on them on the 5-on-5 side of things to do that. Because, like I said in segment 1, Ovechkin really hasn't done much in this series, and of course, not going to win. It stays that way. But the way they've been playing, they've been forcing the Capitals to beat them on the 5-on-5, and that's kind of really been about it. And that's why the Hurricanes have kind of neutralized the Capitals in their power play, because they haven't given them very many opportunities to do it. So as long as they're able to keep that trend going, I think they're going to be fine. And furthermore, it's not like Carolina has a bad power play, because you guys heard me talk about going into these playoffs. You need to win on the road, and you need to have a good power play. Well, the Hurricanes have won 2 games on the road already. They've done pretty good job of doing it, and their power play has been pretty much rock solid so far. They are 9 for 30 in their 9 games. However, with the remaining teams that are left, they are second at 30%. The team that's better than them is the Dallas Stars at a 32.4. However, I will have to say this, though. Dallas has played 11 games. So they have played 2 more, and they've had 4 more power play opportunities. So they only are 2.4% behind, but you got to look at the fact that the Hurricanes haven't really had so many power play opportunities compared to Dallas. However, the Hurricanes' net power play is still 30%, but Dallas's 26.5% because they've given up 2 short-handed goals so far in these playoffs. So the Hurricanes do have that going for them, is the fact that they, knock on wood, that they haven't been scored on the shorthanded. They've capitalized on their opportunities. And that's kind of big for the Hurricanes. We look at January to mid-April, they only had 3 power play goals. And that was a big concern coming into the postseason. You were at 10th at one point. You finished 25th. How's the power play going to get rolling? Because, you bring in Taylor Hall. The Hurricanes had 5 games in a row where they had a power play goal. Shane Gostisbehere gets hurt, comes back, kind of gets going again. But it was a struggle. It was a big question coming in because, how are the Hurricanes going to play, especially with their sub-500 record on the road and their kind of anemic, put it on a milk carton type of power play. Where did it go? Have you seen me type of stuff? And now you look at the playoffs, and now they're 1 goal away from double digits, and they're absolutely flying right now when Sebastian Aho's got most of them. So I think if the fact that the Hurricanes get the opportunity against the Capitals, if they get enough chances, I think they're going to be – because they're due for one. They're due for a power play goal. They haven't had one in a couple games. I think they're very much due for a power play goal because, we saw them do it in Game 5 against the Devils to clinch round 1. They had 2 power play goals, both of them from Sebastian Aho. So if there's an opportunity for the Hurricanes to win Game 5 and punch their ticket for the next round, scoring a power play goal would be very huge. Could it be Sebastian Aho? Sure. Could it be Seth Jarvis? Most definitely. I could see that really happening as well. Taylor Hall, he's got some power play goals. Logan Staycoven, Jackson Blake. Hey, Shane Gostisbehere power play goal wouldn't be bad either because you would love to see one from Ghost because he's definitely done that because that's what you need him for. You need him to score those big power play goals or get those majority of power play points, which he does have in his regular season career and in the playoffs too. Of course, not a lot of playoff experience for Shane Gostisbehere, but he's going to get a lot of that with the Hurricanes because this is his second time already in the playoffs with this team. But there's so many guys who could step up huge. First power play unit, second power play unit. There's guys who can't score goals. So I think that plays into as well. If the Hurricanes limit their penalties and not give the Capitals so many opportunities and force them to score 5-on-5, I think you're looking really great if you're the Hurricanes. And then even more so, if the Hurricanes just at least score 1 power play goal, it could be 1 for 1 on the whole night or 1 for 2. As long as you're able to at least get 1, that gives you such a better percentage of an opportunity to finish this series early in Game 5. Like I said, I predicted 7. I thought this series was going to be close. Who knows? It still possibly could. But if you can end this thing in 5 and you're pretty much healthy across the board still, and then all you're waiting for is Florida, Toronto, hey, you're looking pretty dang good in all that type of aspect. So I think that's another big key for this game for the Hurricanes is if they take what they've been doing so far on the special teams 9 games into the playoffs, I think there's a really good opportunity to end this thing in 5, and then you get to rest a little bit longer, give Freddie a break, give the guys on the defense a break. You just give everyone an opportunity to just take a breath, get some extra rest, go work out with Billy we need to, go check out with the trainers and Doug Bennett and all of them, and just stay fresh and be ready to go for the Eastern Conference Final. But, the main thing is, and they always say it's the toughest game to win is that 4th one to finish the series. And this is going to be a big one for the Hurricanes. So if they can, like I said, limit and take their own advantages on special teams, this could be a game where you could be looking at what they did in round 1 and finish this series in 5 games and do it in round 2 to punch their ticket for the Eastern Conference Final. And this is a very, very big game for the Hurricanes on Thursday night in DC. Now, that being said, we talk about Frederik Andersen, we talk about the special teams, but the main thing the Hurricanes need to do is, like I said, take what they did in Game 4, score in the first period, and that's really going to set them up early to hopefully knock this series out sooner rather than later. So stick around and we'll talk about why starting early could have them have an opportunity to win this thing early. Stick around. We'll talk about it more here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, like I said at the end of segment 2, what do I mean by start early, win early? Well, it's simple as this. We all know what the Hurricanes have done so far in this round against the Washington Capitals. Hold the Caps off in a lot of barrage opportunities that they've had in the first period. Most of the time it's gone 0-0 going into the second. And, at the last couple games, the Hurricanes have scored first and taken those games. Now, if they take what they did in game 4, score in the first period, and then do what they did in that one, but more so in the effects of game 3, where it might not be a shutout, but if you limit it to 1 or 2 goals, which they kind of did in game 4 as well, but you start early, you will win the series early. That's what I mean by the start early, win early. You start early, full 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey, you score in the first period, put all the pressure on the Capitals, and if you do what you did in games 3 and what you did in game 4, you're going to win this series early, and that's the key. This is my number 3 key. It could be number 1, but I think key 1 to key 2 will lead into key 3. You get Frederik Andersen going early. He starts doing what he does, what he's been doing all playoff long. Your special teams kicks in great. You limit their opportunities on their own power play, but you take advantage of your power play, and you start early. 60 minutes of Canes hockey, this is where that start early. You start early, you score early, you get on the board first, you put the pressure on them, you play your game. 60 minutes of Canes hockey, transitional play, structure man defense, dump and chase, bang the boards, put the pressure on them on the forecheck, put the pressure on them on the back check, hit them in all 3 zones, win faceoffs, control the tempo. As long as you're controlling the tempo, not getting into what Washington wants, and you play your game, you start all that early, you play that way the whole game, you will win the game and you will win the series. That's basically it. That's why this is what I mean by you start early, you win early. Because as long as you're doing all that right from the jump, no waiting 10, 15 minutes, not like what they did in game 5 against against New Jersey, where you're down 3-0 after the first period. We don't want that again. We definitely don't want that start again. But if you get the starts like you have been seeing so far in this series, more importantly, the games in Raleigh, you do that here in game 5, I can almost have a good feeling that the Hurricanes will able to take that start, roll through this all of game 5, put the pressure even more so on the Caps, make them make the mistakes, make them come to you with the mistakes. Don't force it. You can force them into the mistakes, but if you put the pressure on them and make them press and press and press more, that press that they're going to do, and we've seen this in games 3 and in game 4, they start pressing, then you're going to be able to hit them on the counterattacks. As we saw that a lot in game 3, there was a lot of odd man rushes for the Canes, especially in the second and in the third period, and we saw that in game 4 as well. The more you put the pressure on the Capitals, the more they're going to have to be aggressive on their attack in the offensive zone, which will leave them vulnerable in their own defensive zone, which the Hurricanes can take advantage. So if you're putting the Capitals in that position where they're going to have to fight extra hard in the offensive zone to make some opportunities and kind of leave their defense left kind of to dry. And if it's Logan Thompson, and then again, you leave him to basically have to make 10 bell saves all night, that is going to be a good thing for the Hurricanes, because now you're forcing them to give up the defense to create more offense. Then you can use that for counterattacks. You can use that for the odd man rush, because now you're putting the pressure on that one lone defenseman and that netminder to stop the puck. And if you continuously do that all game long, then the mistakes are going to happen, because that's where you see the big rebound opportunities from Thompson. You're going to see guys get open on the 2-on-1s. The odd man rushers are going to be absolutely insane. And you're going to see like what Taylor Hall did. You score on the breakaway, and you find a way to get that crowd silenced early. And that's just why I think is that's why you start early. You get up on the Capitals. You control the tempo. You play your game full 60 minutes of Canes hockey like we've seen so far in these playoffs, especially in the late few games. As long as you can do that, I think there's a really good chance the Hurricanes could finish this thing in 5. Is it a guarantee? Obviously not, because you can't really guarantee anything in the playoffs. But you feel really good about yourselves where the Hurricanes are at. They've been dialed in all series long. Everyone's been questioning the Capitals, like what's going on with Washington? Where's this team been that won the Eastern Conference in the regular season, took care of Montreal in Game 1? Well, it's the Canes. It's the cardiovascular system of the Hurricanes. It's the Canes system being cardiovascularly stronger because they've been outskating the Capitals. That's the one thing. Because like Herb Brooks said it for the U.S. men's national team in 1980. The legs feed the wolves, gentlemen, and that's what it is. That's what it is for the Carolina Hurricanes, because right now they are a younger team. Yes, they do have some guys who are a little bit older, Brent Burns, Jordan Staal, Jordan Marnick, all of them. But here's the thing, though, too. They have a lot of young guys. Jarvis, Kotkaniemi, Svechnikov, Blake, Stankoven. A lot of these guys are young, but this team has speed. And they got some sneaky speed, especially on that defense. Jacob Slavin, fast guy. Jalen Chatfield, fast. Ghost, fast. Look at the forwards. Eric Robinson, Jack Roslovic, Seth Jarvis, Jackson Blake, Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho. There is so much speed on this Hurricanes team that's why they are outworking the Capitals. That's why you see them absolutely dogging them. Offensive zone, neutral zone, defensive zone, 200-foot north, south, east, west hockey. The Hurricanes are going to be absolutely on you from the jump. They're always on board battles. They're always fighting for the pucks. If they don't have the puck, they're going to go for the puck. They're not going to wait for you to come to them. They're going to go for the puck, and they're going to force you to make the mistakes of trying to pass quick and make the mistakes for the steal and go the other way. This is what a complete Hurricanes hockey, what we saw in Game 3, that is complete Hurricanes hockey. Now, they do that like they did in Game 3 and add that early start they had in Game 4 when they're up 1-0, that would be a perfect recipe for how Game 5 is going to go on Thursday night against the Capitals. So, like I said, for the third key, you start early, you get up early, you win early. Now, I'm not talking about winning the game early. You're going to win the series early. You're going to win it in 5, and then you're off to the Eastern Conference Final for the third time in the Rod Brind'Amour era. But it all starts at 7 o'clock right off the puck drop. That's all you need to do. Play your game, control the tempo, and do what you need to do to play your system that has been working in the regular season and has been working in the playoffs. And now you have the opportunity to do it one more time. And like you did in round 1, finish this thing in 5 and head off to the next round and keep your playoff run going for Lord Stanley's Cup. So it definitely should be interesting on Thursday night for the Hurricanes against the Capitals in Game 5. Like I said, my big 3 keys for this one: Frederik Andersen playing strong like he has been on playoffs. Special teams, limit their opportunities in the power play, take advantage on your power play, and then start early, lead early, win the series early. And that's pretty much what hopefully should be the keys for the Hurricanes to win Game 5. But guys, that will be the third episode of Locked On. Thank you for making it listen today. Locked On game night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL game night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where I do have links in my link trees to check out all of my written content about the Hurricanes at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. You can find it on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check it out there. Make sure to subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs so they become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Thursday and have fun watching your Carolina Hurricanes play the Washington Capitals in Game 5 with the opportunity to win the series and head on to the Eastern Conference Final. Until next time, as always, let's go Canes.